What's going on, Soul Tribe? And welcome to Alchemist Astrology. Justin here, and are you ready to get into them Lunar Shenanigans, which is a weekly show that goes over the astrology of the moon, what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to be going void of course, and to get an understanding of the different transits that the moon and aspects that the moon makes with the other celestial bodies to help us navigate through those waters. It's always helpful to sync with that good old moon. Now, before we jump into this thing, if you want to support the work that I'm doing further, down in the description box, there's a link for my Patreon page where I have a couple of tiers. One will give you access to the Lucky Day podcast and any other future projects. I actually got some ideas that I'm gonna be cooking up here soon. Some additional content and of astrological things and all sorts of neat stuff. So I'll keep you posted on that. And then the second one will give you access to that plus the a personalized monthly transit report from me. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely go check that out. But let's go ahead and dive into the Lunar Shenanigans because I'm going to cover the week of April 7th through the 13th, 2026. And we're starting off a bit rocky. I probably should have led with that. The week does start off kind of rocky. Actually, when I'm recording this, the moon is going to be will be entering into Sagittarius for already in about an hour. And the reason that I have this in red on the 7th, while it's time through Sagittarius, when you look at the moon in Sag, it's in aversion to the benefics, and that just means that the benefics can't see the moon, being that the Venus and Taurus here, they're in great shape, but they can't share any of that while the moon is in Sagittarius. The one sort of nicer thing about this is that the moon and Jupiter at least have this sort of loose mutual reception of being in each other's houses, the moon being in Sagittarius and Jupiter being in Cancer, the moon's home. So there's at least that, but they're not viewing each other by aspect, and so that creates this. Yeah, they're just not able to intervene with the maleficence that's going to be happening because it's not so much the Saturn trine or that's really harsh that we already had here, but it's that square with Mars that's not looking too hot. And when we're starting off the week, the moon's waning, and we have a trine with the sun, which is an interesting start when you think about the idea of the sun. It can indicate the ruler, those who have authority over the masses, and the trine is the most beneficial aspect. It's a very positive. It's when the celestial bodies are 120 degrees apart from one another. So you see here in this, you got these like elements of fire with Sagittarius and Aries. So there's a beneficence there. There's a flow. There's an ease that comes with this. And you think about that. There's something with, let's say, for example, this gives me, you have this good relationship, let's say, with like a manager, but then with that moon square, but then they have to deliver some sort of harsh news, and things change. Maybe with finances, for example, the moon was thought to represent like the gains and expenses. Mercury deals with commerce, banking, and so maybe there's something along those lines. I know someone who got some pretty tough news not too long ago from someone like an example like this from someone who they respected, but they were just there was a change in the business, and so there may be something along those lines. Maybe there's the luminaries, the sun and the moon, were there's a clarity, I think, when the moon and the sun have this trine. There was the sun is the all-seeing, the light of the mind, and the moon deals with that idea of sight, and it's almost like being able to see that that something maybe like bad news is coming or harsh news is even coming, because when we talk about that moon square Mercury, that's when the sun. If you're watching the video version here, I have the chart of that one up, and that's when the celestial bodies are 90 degrees from one another. So you see here in like modalities, as we talk about the mutable signs here, Sagittarius and Pisces, both ruled by Big Papa here. And yeah, there's some sort of tension that's coming with that. There could be the moon dealing with travels. There could be having clarity as far as like where that's going to be going, and it may not be the best of news for that could be just something that could be a potential example that we may see. Maybe there's some sort of change that's going on that either happens in your city, maybe a building's closing, or maybe some sort of construction that's kind of happening there, some things are building up. Even though Mercury is direct, there's still this kind of haziness because Mercury's traveling through a tougher part for Mercury to be in. It's I would still tune into those. Yeah, they're still gonna. I feel like those kind of like almost Mercury retrograde type feels when Mercury is in Pisces, and so there could be, yeah, these sort of delays that come with the Moon square. There could be, yeah, slow down. Maybe seeing where the things with trade, or as far as like different crops and things where that's going. Maybe there's some sort of halt there. So that'd be kind of interesting to kind of watch. That's something I'm definitely keeping note of when the Moon enters here, and seeing what kind of news comes up over the next couple of days. But yeah, that's basically how we're starting off the week. But the nice thing, though, that I want to mention with this is that the week is going to improve once we get over this hump here, because we get to the thick of it when we get to the 8th of March. This is when things are starting to reach their peak. But the moon's applying to a lot of hard aspects, and they're going to be applying to the benefics before, or be applying to the malefics, and before the moon enters into Capricorn, the moon's going to form a square with Mars. And when you think about the martial quality, Mars is force on the extreme ends. It's violence. It's its aggression. It can deal with accusations. I always say these are ones, considering too that we had that Mercury that is still co-present with Mars there. I'd be mindful, and even just like over these next couple months, just because Mercury is eventually going to catch up with Mars and Saturn. So I'd be mindful of any sort of fights that you tend to get into. Be mindful again of like different travels. This could be where you get in some sort of like not paying attention and getting some sort of accident, or just make sure to look where you're walking, things along those lines. I was walking one day, and good thing I happened to look up. It was my turn to walk, but the bus was still going, and so that had not been a happy Justin. So just something to kind of tune into there. I was actually going through an odd Mars transit, so that was really peculiar in itself. But this could be something where Moon square Mars. This could be where you hear something with like different lawsuits maybe that are coming up. Something that is being followed by the public. This can deal with, Mars deals with like exile and banishment, so there may be a movement of people, potentially. Again, we're talking about extreme cases here. But yeah, something to think about with Mars. Mars can be theft. It can be even just thinking about the combination of these two. I would say be mindful. Of health. The malefics are going to be the challenges, the illnesses, and things that deal with the body. And when we think about the moon, so making sure to take care of oneself during this period. Always have a good as good of a regimen of taking care of the body as one can. But especially I think during these, when the moon is forming these harder aspects, there's more. I think that there could be more signs of you hear people just kind of coughing a bit more, sniffling and things like that. So kind of tune into that and things along those lines. That's another thing I would think with the malefics. But also too, both Mars and Saturn deal with this sense of. Mars gets into like perjury and gets into this into lying, whereas Saturn is this more kind of deceptive quality, well, false appearances, secretive things along those lines. And so I'd even be mindful of ways that there's some sort of like manipulations. The moon thinking with the crowds, paying attention to how energies, or you're not energies, but how different opinions and different things move. One, how where force is moving a collective or however that might look. So yeah, Moon Square Mars they're never really the greatest. Any kind of hard aspects with the malefics. So this would be a time that I would kind of tune into. And then we get to then the moon will thankfully that's happening kind of early. And that's something I've been kind of contemplating, like what does that look like compared to, let's say, if you have this transit happening but you're located during and it's happening during the evening. Is it less like, because Mars by night charts are more constructive than by day charts. Mars is going to be more challenging. So that's something I've been really kind of thinking about as of late, and seeing how that the different areas of the world differ depending on where that what time that's happening. But that's just a little side thought. But then the moon's going to enter into Capricorn after all that. It's going to enter into Capricorn at about 5:04 Pacific time. And if you watch the chart, I got the moon in Cap here. Now, when we get a lay of the land, a couple things with this. This is not this is one of those places where the moon isn't the happiest here. This is where the moon is in its, you can think of it as its exile or its detriment. It's where it's farthest away from its home sign of Cancer. It's like being in a place that is completely foreign to you. You don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know the lay of the land. You're just kind of working with what you're just working. Moon's just working with what it has, and so being able to do what it does. So, that's something to think. It's under the rulership of Saturn, which Saturn's not in the best place. It's in at least some decent bounds, at least if we're going to find some goodness in that. but but yeah, it's Saturn's not in the greatest of shape. The moon has reception with Saturn, so that's at least some sort of mitigation that's going to happen with the moon in Capricorn. So not too bad. It's back into being viewed by the benefics again. So we love that. Love that the moon's going to get some support from a strong Venus and strong Jupiter. So it's not all too bad. Yeah, the only thing that's going to be is starting off here that square with its domicile lord. And again, the squares are thought to be more kind of harder aspects, and especially when we're talking about I've talked about this with in Firmicus's book. There's this emphasis really on waning versus waxing applications of the moon, and the waning ones applying to Saturn were thought to be harder than the waxing one when the moon's increasing in light. So that's one to kind of pay attention to, whereas the reverse sort of happened where this was an easier square for Mars here. So maybe there wasn't as forceful of a thing here, but we're still dealing with some sort of long-term consequences that are happening with Saturn. Saturn can deal with things. I think about things of like dealing with the water side and dealing with like water side trades. That was something Saturn was very closely associated with, that tending to the land farmers. So thinking about property, maybe some sort of challenges with that, some sort of long-term things we can see, like property increases, or some sort of Saturn was thought to be of like unemployment obstacles in businesses. So it's a tricky one when we're talking about this. This could be maybe like a change in supervisions and management, and it may hopefully is for the better, but that's not always the case. So that might be something even to consider. It gives me this idea of when things are like parties are changing over or something like that, or a new ownership comes in. You're kind of rolling the dice. Some have great intentions and others don't. So this is a tricky kind of start there, but at least it's like, if we're gonna get it out, the moon's like, let's not get this out the way right now. Let's just kind of knock it out, be done. Because then we get to the next day here, and on the 9th we get a little bit of relief. The moon is going to form a trine with Venus, and the moon trine Venus, that's again the most positive aspect that is going to be happening, especially with the benefic. That's really nice too. When we think of those Venusian qualities, I think this can be a time of being with family. I think it's it's a nurturing aspect when we think about the moon, and Venus is in a very nurturing place, being in Taurus. Venus is going to take care of you. And so this could be doing something with, like I said, with people. This could be just tending to the body in some sort of way, doing something nice for yourself, even if it's just taking some moments of just doing some breathing. That's something that I've been taking some time each day to just sort of do, just kind of be, not even just be in my head, just kind of be with the breath, because the moon, that's a thing with the thing, a significator with the moon. It was signified. Let me see if I can talk. It signified the breath, and so even doing some things along those lines, doing some sort of purifying, maybe even doing some in your space, if you're able to get some rosemary, or maybe have like an incense, or even like, just something to just kind of cleanse air, maybe kind of open the, let some fresh air kind of come through. That could always feel really nice there. And it's interesting, because then the next aspect that we have is an opposition with Big Papa here at Jupiter. And when you think about the oppositions, those are when the celestial bodies are 90 degrees apart from, or excuse me, not 90, 180 degrees apart from one another. So they're in direct opposite signs. And typically when we're talking about the benefics, especially Jupiter, we're thinking about all the good things. We're thinking about Jupiter's life giving. It represents children, it's love, it's our desires, it's friends with great people. It brings rank and promotions and things. But here, with the opposition happening, there feels like there's something that it's not appreciated. It's not. I always think that when we have hard aspects with the benefics, this is how things get squandered. So there could be this people in, what's up? Let me try to think of an example. This could be hearing like, oh, there's going to be promises of this, of prosperity, of great salaries, of great gifts, but the moon being opposed to that. This could be the people saying like, okay, but where? There's just all this promises of life giving and things, and but it's just like, you gotta, how are you, can we really trust in that? When I think of the opposition, there's a lack of, there's this, I think what ultimately leads to, because I think all the time with the benefics being constructive, there's still always going to be hard work that comes with it. But I think with the flip side too, with the benefics, even when there are maybe challenges, squanders, it leads to different actions, different, where it's like, okay, this thing may have gone one way, may have been squandered, but this taught me to be more resourceful the next go round. When I think about that, to be more discerning with who I trust, that will say that they're gonna relieve me from all bad things and stuff along those lines. To trust that intuition, that Gnostic knowledge more. That could be that's a fascinating thought, collective intuition, and thinking about that, how we all intuit in this space, and kind of navigating that. And so that could be some things that may kind of show up there. And this could even be with that Venus, kind of throwing that Venus trine in there. If there have been moments where your faith has been tested, that Venus trine can be. Venus is a very spiritual planet too, like Jupiter. And it's that idea of I think where Jupiter is the receiving of the inspirations, the connections with that higher source, God, spirit, whatever that's looking like. Venus is those acts of devotion, of prayer, of cleanliness, of that spiritual passion that I think Venus can rile up there. And this could even be where that moon trine is, that there's been a hope for some relief, and then not seeing that relief. Then we get to the last quarter phase, which is the moon, when the moon squares the sun. And I have that chart up here. It happens about 20 degrees in 20 minutes. Moon in Cap, sun in Aries. And it's kind of weird when you even think about that. The sun, this is the time when the sun's supposed to be exalted, and something to note too, that this is the day, now that I'm being brought to Aries here, Mars just entered into Aries. And so this is the point where we want to start paying attention to this, what's building up here between that conjunction with Mars and in Saturn here. Something is getting ready to, and they do this every 2 years where they meet in a different sign. They'll do this in 2 years in Taurus, and then in Gemini, then in Cancer, and they keep doing this. It's real fascinating to watch that dance between those two. I think they do it a couple times in Scorpio, but yeah, there's something that's a brewing here. This is one of those harder aspects that's happening with Mars and Saturn. Granted, Mars is in its home sign, so that's a plus. The moon's going to start relating with Mars different, but this gives me this moon squared the sun at the end, not being able to quite see where things are going. The moon is waning in light. It doesn't have quite that clarity. Things are starting to wind down here as we move in this lunar cycle. So it felt like, when I'm recording this, the Scorpio seats, or while the moon is in Scorpio, that felt like it was going by really fast. Oh, and this is something too, while I'm thinking about this as well. If you have cardinal placements, it's going to be Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, or Libra. This could be a more active time for you when planets are going through cardinal signs, like you see Capricorn here, and especially, as you've probably noticed, going through Aries right now. If you have those cardinal placements as well, this is be a kind of a busier time for those ones. So something to kind of tune into there. Moon squared sun too can be feeling just a little off. The mind and the body aren't feeling in alignment. So if things are kind of feeling off, that may be something that could be coming up there with that moon squared sun too. Kind of tune into there. But let's get to the next slide here. Because the moon's going to finish up its time. Oh, no, first it's going to get myself together. So first, the moon is going to, before it enters into Aquarius on the 10th here, it's going to form a sextile with Mercury. Now, the sextiles are when the celestial bodies are 60 degrees apart from one another. So they're in this sort of like those sort of like signs as far as like daytime signs or active signs versus nocturnal signs or like passive signs. So we're talking about, in this instance, Capricorn and Pisces there. They have that connection. And the sextile was thought to be similar to the trine, where it's a beneficial aspect, but it's a weaker one. It requires some more initiative to take opportunity of, or take action on that opportunity. And there could be where, let's say, for example, when we were talking with that moon square Mars and Saturn, maybe there were some changes that happened in employment or something along those lines, and it kind of opened up that market there. This could be presenting some sort of new paths that come through, some sort of new news that's coming through there. Maybe there's a new business that's happened to open up. Maybe something along those lines comes through there. That's one way that I could see that potentially open up. It's not the best way for something to come through, but at least if a door closed, at least another one is hopefully opening up there. That's what that moon sextile Mercury could potentially be. Just thinking about Mercury and all the different abilities that it has, that different skills that it represents. This gives me to some sort of discovery that gets brought to, maybe an opportunity, some sort of news there, maybe nothing super impactful, but something to note. I think that may have a bigger impact as things start to move along, as Mercury starts to get out of Pisces and get a little bit more clarity, a bit more energy when it gets into Aries. But that could be something that comes up with the moon sextile. Maybe here I pay attention to like what may happen to hear from your friends, or maybe from siblings, from parents, whatever that happens to look like there. Maybe hopefully there's a bit more ease, maybe with travel, thinking about the moon and Mercury together there. So that could be something to think about. And then the moon's going to enter into Aquarius at about 4:55 p.m. Pacific time. I have the moon in Aquarius chart up here. And when we get the lay of the land there, it gets out of the view of Jupiter, which that stinks, but still in the view of Venus, so that's fine. It's got a harmonious configuration with his domicile lord, traditional domicile lord of Saturn. Aquarius is a traditional sign of Saturn's. And when we look at the lay of the land here, the moon's going to have a pretty much a series of sextiles with the malefics, with the sun, and then it's going to have that square with Venus that's going to happen a little bit later there. So at least we get, even though it's a square with Venus, at least we got some benefics viewing there that we like. And the first aspect that the moon is going to form is that with that fresh Mars that's now in Aries. And when we think of an easy aspect with the malefics, this can be where, let's say, for example, Mars can deal with, on a more constructively, deals with like, you're kind of like commanders, kind of competent leadership, governorship, things along those lines. So this could be someone who brings some sort of order, who knows how to take some sort of action there to kind of bring some not necessarily control, but some, there's a better word that I'm looking for this one, some sort of order. Maybe that's happening if things have been, since we're considering how kind of chaotic things have been feeling. So maybe there's something that comes along there. There's some sort of shift maybe in those lines where I'm thinking of Mars representing embassies kind of under difficult circumstances. Maybe this can be a stabilizing of this, some sort of opportunity kind of taken there. This gives me even good, like, just stepping into more authority, something along those lines. You may see some sort of news with that happening, or even as someone who, if you have something you've been thinking about, maybe there's something in your chart that's indicating that. This is a great example. So let's say, for example, like with this one, and this is perfect if you happen to have a lot of fixed placements, that's going to be Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, or Scorpio. This, when planets are going through those placements, like Venus is going through here, and those are going to be more active periods of time for you. So the Venus is doing some nice stuff right now. And yeah, Venus is. Actually, yes, Venus is. I'm digging Venus there. But this could be, for example, with the moon going through the sixth house here, maybe you're thinking about some stuff with your job. Maybe you wanted to take more responsibility, be the one that's calling the shots, as being this one being told what's to do. Kind of take more responsibility there. So, just thinking, just for example, if you got Virgo rising, so many time planets are squaring that or going through that sixth house. So that's something would be thanks Virgo rising. that was a good example for that one there. So, but yeah, like hopefully there's some more constructive force that's coming with Mars, some sort of, with that news from Mercury, maybe there's some sort of thing that inspires people to take some sort of action. We hear it gives me like sort of like the but with the promise of something. That sort of like gold rush vibes, that like, when we go out here, there's this promise for that, kind of stirring some sort of some sort of inspiration. Yeah, I could maybe see that hopefully that Mars would deliver there. Now we get to the 11th here, and I wanted to mention too, we're getting to the place, now that I'm thinking about it, we're getting to the place where we're having our most positive aspect of the month that's getting ready to form here between Jupiter and Venus. So this is kind of a notable week. Then we're going to get into that more as we get to the end. But that's something that I wanted to mention, that where this is, there's some things building up with Mars and Saturn and eventually Mercury that's going to be happening. We do have this sweet pocket that is that this little light pocket that's happening there. So just wanted to bring that to the attention there. Now, on the 11th, the moon is going to then form a sextile with Saturn, its domicile lord. And again, this gives me this idea of being able to get into some sort of control, thinking about some sort of long-term planning, being able to put in the discipline for something. If you need to have that extra push, if you need to get some paperwork done, if you need to get some studying done, if you need to get some sort of work done, maybe we're doing some kind of like some sort of like more physical labor. I'm thinking with Saturn, something along those lines. I think the moon sextile Saturn, I think that also can create this, if there's going to be like maybe this long form travel. Let's say, for example, there's going to be delays. You're taking like a book with you, for example. That's what that's kind of giving me. They're being able to handle the pressures of the weight, finding ways to dealing with working with the being able to work with the necessity. I think to be able to be more strict, to be able to be more disciplined. I think with Saturn, and then you get the moon square Venus. This is an interesting one because it gives me this sense that there's a chance to think about some long-term things, but it's going to require some sort of, just thinking the relationship aspect of Venus, it's going to require some compromise, some sort of that both parties are coming out even on this. So that, or it even gives me maybe with that moon sextile Saturn, there's some sort of long-term planning, but it's going to have some sort of initial harsh effect. Maybe when we're thinking Venus could deal with markets. It was dealing with the weighing of coins, with the weighing of coins. This even gives me even some sort of, there could be some sort of challenges maybe in the arts, possibly. I'm thinking with the moon square Saturn, maybe people having to be more frugal, aren't going to be able to get out and appreciate the arts as much, maybe having to find different ways to do that in a more natural sense, possibly making more time to create for what with oneself. And that could be just singing more, or just kind of maybe doing some humming, maybe taking some time to just kind of be for a minute. I think the moon square Venus too gives me that maybe appreciation for restraint, with that kind of that sextile Saturn in the mix, when we show that discipline, where we may be denying that initial pleasure, or that initial gratification, that it's something about a long term that's giving me this positive. So something interesting there. Then we get to the 12th of, yeah, let me start wrapping this up. The 12th of April. Then we have a sextile with the sun. And again, maybe there's some sort of opportunity that's being created for there with the, maybe there's an opportunity to work with management, for example, to make some sort of improvement, some sort of recommendations for something to improve one's environment, or one's city, possibly one's neighborhood, whatever that might look like there. And we're getting to this point where we're getting closer. Next week we'll be talking about wrapping up the lunar cycle here soon. And yeah, this has been a very notable one that's been going on. This April is going to be a very fascinating one to watch. But as you see here, as we're the moon, I got the moon sextile the sun here. But again, now we got that they're about maybe a little less than 5, or about 4 and some change degrees away from one another, Mars and Saturn here. Mercury will be changing signs I think in a couple of days. I think on the 14th, Mercury changes signs. So this gives me the opportunity to think about with the changes that are happening, where what does one see, like I begin with the luminaries be representing that light, where does one see being able to move your direction based on your circumstances, where how are you going to be able to manage, with whatever, with the cards that you're working with. So interesting one on the 12th there. And then we get to the 13th. The moon will move into the last day here. The moon will move into Pisces on the 13th at about 1:55 a.m. Pacific time. And I put this in green because when we look at the lay of the land here, now that Mars is out of Pisces and in Aries, both the malefics are in Aries, the moon's freed up from them, and it's just harmonious aspects with the benefics. It's got, when we look at the lay of the land, it's going to be co-present with Mercury for just like maybe another day. But yeah, otherwise it's just talking with the benefics. It's going to form a sextile with Venus, and look, that when we're looking at this, Jupiter and Venus are just separating from their sextile that's happening there. So hopefully this moon in Pisces gives us a little bit of a reprieve, a bit of pocket to just breathe for a minute, because that's really nice. The moon, it has mutual. Now we have how it had reception with Jupiter and Sag, but now it has reception with that connection, that positive trine that's happening there. So I like that. I like that it's going to be, that this is going to be happening. It's one of the trines that happen twice in the lunar cycle, one more ease, more supporting, and then we got that sextile that's going to happen with Venus. Both the benefics are in good shape as far as their placements there. So yeah, I like how this story kind of ends. Let me go ahead and switch over. Yeah, I like how this story ends, but it is a that getting over that first hump is going to be the trickiest thing that we're going to be experiencing. So, and then I think there's just a bit of tension just seeing how this Mars Saturn thing is going to, how this is unfolding, because it's where there again, there are good things that are happening. It's a zoo out there too, and so it's something to, it's yeah, something to definitely, we're in an interesting time, one to definitely watch. And I think that this moon in Pisces can be one that we're could be a real, hopefully breath of fresh air, at least some sort of relief, for at least for a bit there for these next couple of days. This is one where you're going to want to look if you have a lot of mutable placements. That's going to be Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or Sagittarius. This may be more active, or when planets are going through this chart, as you've seen with those planets going through Pisces, that this could be more time, busier time for you. So it's just something to pay attention to there. Always look to see what house or houses those points are. The Capricorn, even Sag. We talk about Sagittarius too. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. What are those houses? How they what other planets? How did the planets view those houses? Are they seen from, like I said, from the maybe from the square or opposition points? Those are going to be harder. Or just more active. The trines and the sextiles are more easier times. So just something to think about as you're navigating this on a personal level as well, thinking about those ways. But yeah, that's basically the week for us in a nutshell, in a couple of signs. But yeah, very very active, and I'd be curious to hear how this week has been for you. This has been a very actually an interesting one for me. I'm noticing a bit more ease, which is nice. I've been following. I'm doing some studying, and I've been following, refining this technique I've been working on. It's going to take me a little while, but I'm getting the hang of it. And yeah, I'm in a spot where I'm in an easy pocket, and I'm like, okay, I'll take that. I need to do the most with it. So yeah, I'm gonna be making attempts to do some more things, and yeah, take advantage of that. So yeah, Saturn. I bet, even though there's all this stuff going through, when I'm thinking about Mars even going through here, I don't like that it's. I'm more so like I'm thinking about all the trines that are gonna be happening there. I think that's going to be really nice. All those trines. It'll be the kind of like the force that I need there to get some things done. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. Mars has been more. The Mars in Pisces wasn't that fun. It was squaring my moon. So I was good on that. I'm good on that. So yeah, this should be nice. This should be nice for a little bit until Mars gets into Taurus. We'll navigate that as we get there. But yeah, we'd love to hear how things have been going for you, how this showed up, how you've been navigating this. And if that's something that you want to discover more, learn how to see what's coming up in your chart, down in the description box, you can book a consultation with me. And if you have any questions, my email's down there as well. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I have a couple playlists for the Lunar Shenanigans and the Celestial News Monthly. That the Celestial News Monthly gives a breakdown of everything for the month, from the sun, from the perspective of the sun and the other classical planets. So that's something that's available for you there. And what else? What else? And then I have these videos that have the different selection, the sun, moon, and the other planets in different zodiac signs in different places of the chart. So in how to navigate that when you're looking at that in your own chart. So definitely go avail yourself of that. Again, I think I'm gonna start. I got an idea. I got an idea, and I think I'm gonna expand on that in for Patreons. So that's something to look forward to. That's something that you would want to, like, a deeper dive into how to navigate that. If we're talking, like, let's say if you're a Capricorn rising. I'm just looking at this chart on the screen, for example. You got Capricorn rising, and let's say your Saturn's at 7 degrees of Aries, and how those themes flow to one another. So, and or if you had maybe Saturn in the fifth house, how that would relate, or how Saturn in the sixth house, and just kind of going through the houses like that. I'm still formatting that in my head, but that's going to be something that I'll be availing here soon. So definitely go check that out, and yeah, until next time, stay mindful out there. Yeah, we should still be able to see that good old moon. To be able to keep eyes on that good old moon for at least a little bit longer. It's about to go back under the beams of the sun here soon. And I'm curious about how that. Speaking of lunar shenanigans, I'm curious to hear how that mission with the astronauts on the moon is going to be. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.